This is the Aftermarket Radio Network.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Walker. Today, I'm going to be talking about creating a shared vision for your company. But first, thank you to our friends at RepairPal for this episode. RepairPal will introduce your shop to new customers through RepairPal.com, the largest site for auto repair. Learn more at RepairPal.com/shops. And thanks to our friends at App Fuel. Declined repairs don't have to be lost revenue. App Fuel's call center schedules follow-up calls and equips your team with everything they need to close the deal. Get started now at appfueled.com. All right, so today I'm going to be talking about creating a shared vision, and I want to give you a little bit of backstory on where this came from. So if you listen to this podcast often, then you know that we are an EOS company. Like, we follow the entrepreneurial operating system. And part of that is we have offsite meetings 4 times per year. The last meeting of the year is our 2-day annual that we do in December, where we are planning for the upcoming year. And during the 2-day annual, we do a couple of different exercises that we wouldn't normally do. And one of them is called the one thing. And when we're doing the one thing, the way that works is we all get together as a leadership team. We kind of sit in a small room, kind of in a circle, and we go around. We will tell each person what is one thing that we admire about them and what is one thing that we wish that they would do differently. And I remember the first time we did that, it was actually very uncomfortable. But, we've gotten to the point now where it's become pretty comfortable to do, because we know that, everyone is doing this for the betterment of the company. And in reality, everything that has ever been presented to me is something that they wish that I would do better. It was always something that I wished that I would do better also. So I didn't take any offense to it. It was something that once presented to me, it was like, you know what? I agree with that. I could do that better. And this time, understand that each person from the leadership team is telling you one thing that they want you to do better. And when you do this, so, in our case, we have 5 people on our leadership team. So I have 4 things that are being told to me that they wish that I would do better. And what we're supposed to do is take one of those things and act on it. Like, that's our thing really over the next year to become better at. And you're going to leave that meeting with a rock to work on at least over the next quarter. So in this meeting that we had in December, the thing that I took away that I thought was the most important for me to work on was about creating a shared vision throughout our entire organization. Now, I want to go back a little bit and kind of tell you where this came from. So we have big goals at Shop Marketing Pros, and those goals have not always been so big, because I was always afraid. Like, there's a couple of companies in the industry that they've grown really big. And one of the things that I've heard consistently, like as we were talking to their clients, is, I don't want you to grow so big like this company. They were great at one time. And, now since they've grown so big, they're just not anymore. And I had that stuck in my head, and it was like, I don't ever want to become that company. I don't want us to ever become so big that we can't be great. So I always wanted to keep the company small. And then it occurred to me one day, because I don't like small thinking. I think that small thinking is like, it doesn't serve us well. And it occurred to me one day that Disney is known as the best at serving their clients, at providing an amazing experience. And I went and looked it up, wanted to see, well, how many people go through all of their parks in the typical day? And it's 169,000 people per day that visit the Disney parks. And look, I know that some people have bad experiences at the Disney parks. There's no one in this world is perfect. But Disney is pretty darn good. Anytime that I ever run into a cast member, at one of the Disney parks, or especially on the Disney cruises, which is something that my family and I have always loved doing, they make our day better. They're so pleasant. They're so great at what they do. And they're doing this for It's 159,000 visitors a day. I don't remember if I just said 169 or 159, but it's 159,000 per day. And they're doing this for 159,000 people per day. And if they can do that, then we can do it for a lot of clients as well. And it really comes down to the processes and the procedures that we have in place to make sure that we are serving our clients greatly. Being an EOS company, we have processes and procedures down. So, here we are operating out of fear and saying we're going to stay small because we want to always be great. When as soon as I shifted my perspective, I realized we can grow large and we can still be great. And by us being great as a marketing company, that means that we are raising our entire industry. We do top tier marketing for top tier shops. And that means that we are working with the best of the best, and the best of the best want to work with the best of the best. So we have to be the best of the best. And we are the best of the best. But we have to do that now. We have to grow because I don't believe in playing small, but we have to do it while remaining the best of the best. And I've got this 3-year picture. One of the things that it says, it talks about, in 3 years, how many clients we have. I'm looking at it right now. And at the bottom, what it says is still the most caring and communicative company in the industry. And we may or may not be the best at, when it comes to doing Google ads or whatever. I would say for most of our clients, we are the best. There are clients before where we have had a tough time getting things to perform, and they were able to get another company to perform better for them. But for the most part, I believe with everything in me that we are the best of the best, and we will give our clients better results than they will get working with any of the other companies out there in the industry. And maybe that's a little bit arrogant for me to say, but I'm sorry if you're not a little bit arrogant about your company and the results that you provide your clients, then maybe you need to rethink what it is that you're doing. We are the best of the best. But there's absolutely zero doubt in my mind that we are the most caring and most communicative company in the industry. I know that 100%. It's important to me that as we grow, that we continue to do that. Anyway, I shifted my mindset. I started looking for, what are the ways that we're going to grow? And in our company, we have always done inbound marketing. And the inbound marketing is something that has always worked the best for us. And that's done by the teaching that we do, the content that we produce, the blogs, these podcasts, the videos, all of this stuff that we do that shows off our expertise. It allows people to get to know, like, and trust us. And then they say, well, I want to work with this company. And usually what will happen is they'll have it in the back of their head. I want to work with this company. They'll go into one of the industry Facebook groups. They'll say, hey, does anybody have any experience working with this company? And our clients usually come out of the woodwork. And I love it when that happens, because when our clients are coming out of the woodwork to say, yes, absolutely, Shop Marketing Pros is who you need to be working with, man, it feels good, because it shows me that we're doing things right. We are giving them the return that they expect or better, and we are giving them the service that they expect or better. And most of our clients love working with us. Again, we are not perfect. Sometimes we drop the ball. We don't always, knock it out of the park. We don't always provide someone the return that they need. But for the most part, we do. I go looking for ways to grow the business, and I find this company. It's another agency owner that has had tremendous growth in his agency, and he has created a course on outbound sales. And part of that is a shift to the internal workings of the organization, the way that we handle customer success. I like the theory behind the way that that's set up. And, I share this with my leadership team. We look into it. We vet this company. We're like, okay, let's do this. So I essentially buy this coaching program and start moving in that direction to start doing some outbound sales, because no one in my company has any experience with outbound sales. Everything we've done is inbound. As I'm telling the people on our team what we're doing, I don't realize that some people are getting really nervous about their future with the company, because they see a shift in the way that we do things with these new clients that we bring in. And they would not be touching these new clients that we bring in. The new clients, instead of them having a customer success manager that takes over after that person comes in, the customer success manager is the person who is the salesperson for that client. And the reason behind that is that you don't have a salesperson out there making promises that somebody else has to keep. It's a really interesting concept, but I didn't realize that some people were getting nervous, even though I let everyone know. Like, I was very clear about no one has to be in fear of their job, losing their job or anything, because that is fact, that no one needed to be in fear of that. But we had people who were in fear of that. My leadership team, they completely understood the vision that I had for the company, but they knew that not everybody in the organization at every level of the organization understood that vision. They couldn't see it as clearly as I could. That is why they came to me with this one thing. As I said, when you have your one thing, you're going to leave with a rock. And my rock for Q1 of 2025 was to do a deep dive into creating a shared vision. I get back, into the swing of things, after the holidays, because this was just before Christmas. I get back in and I start this deep dive. And what I find is there's little to nothing out there about creating a shared vision. If you go looking up things like core values or, the more sexy parts of, running a business, of course, I'm about to call accounting sexy, which is the farthest thing in the world from the truth. But like, you start looking at money management and everything, you can find a million different articles and books and all of that. But when it comes to creating a shared vision, there's little to nothing out there. Even when I go to YouTube and start looking for videos, all that I'm finding is stuff about the church. And it seems like the modern Christian church owns this concept of what they call vision casting. That is the term that they have applied to this, is vision casting. And it's huge in the church. Lots and lots of stuff. Like, I can find all kind of books out there about vision casting, or I can find lots of podcasts and videos and all that about vision casting. But it's all in relation to the church. And in theory, it's the same basic idea, but I'm sorry, it's different. It's just different. I dig, through all of that stuff. And what I land on is I find two books that I wanted to read and that I did read. One of them is called Vivid Vision. The subscript on that is a remarkable tool for aligning your business around a shared vision of the future. And that was written by Cameron Herold, who is one of the founders of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And the other one was The Vision-Driven Leader. The subscript on that is 10 questions to focus your efforts, energize your team, and scale your business. And that was by Michael Hyatt. And I didn't know who Cameron Herold was. I did know who Michael Hyatt was. Michael Hyatt's a pretty famous author. But both of these books had pretty good reviews. They had a decent amount of reviews. It wouldn't have been like, so a lot of the books that I read will have 10,000 reviews. I think both of these had right around 1,000 reviews. And I read both of them. And both of them, they were good books, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was a little bit underwhelmed by both. And it wasn't that the problem was with the books. The books were fine. There was a lot to take away in the books. But I just had it in my head that creating a shared vision was going to be rocket science, and that I was going to be, a little bit more genius for going out there and learning how that worked. What I found is that it's not rocket science. Like, creating a shared vision is not rocket science. I just like to overcomplicate things. So for those of you out there who like simplicity, this is a good thing, because creating a shared vision is a fairly simple thing. I want to talk about the difference between vision, mission, and values, and a little bit about my apathy for all of them. If you've ever been involved in a discussion where you're coming up with the mission, vision, values, for an organization, then you understand how misunderstood these things are. And the most simple way that I know to explain the difference in the three is that vision is where the organization is going. Mission is how you're going to get there. And values are what your beliefs and your ethics look like along the way. All right, let me give you an example. I do use the example of a marketing company, but these are not my vision, mission, and values. It's just, I wrote a blog post on this. I literally I finished writing the blog post probably 15 minutes before I started recording this podcast. When I'm writing, I like to work words in there that are going to work for us for SEO. So of course I made it about a marketing company that specializes in auto repair shops. Let's take a company that they may have a vision of being a $100 million company with 10 offices across the United States, 1,000 employees, and they're serving 10,000 clients. And they're doing this all while being the best at what they do in their industry. Now, I would not mind that being my vision. I would not mind that being my company. 100 million in revenue would be pretty cool, especially if we can maintain our profit margins. But I like to dream big. I'm not quite there yet as far as dreaming that big. It doesn't serve me. I don't have use for that kind of wealth. And don't get me wrong, I love the idea of having a lot of wealth because I can do a lot of great kingdom purpose stuff with a lot of wealth. But I'm not that person that cares about having the private jet or anything like that. Would I like to maybe fly private here and there? Yeah, that would be kind of cool. But I don't need that kind of stuff. Their vision, again, 100 million in revenue, 10 offices around the US, 1,000 employees, and they're serving 10,000 clients, all while being the best at what they do in their industry. Their mission is to provide the highest quality marketing services to auto repair shops throughout the US and Canada. And their values might be something like integrity, excellence, and respect. Where this fictional company is going is to the place of being a $100 million company with 10 offices, 1,000 employees, 10,000 clients. The way that they're going to get there is by providing the highest quality marketing services to auto repair shops throughout the US and Canada. And while they're doing that, they're going to make sure that they do it with integrity and excellence and respect. So that's the vision, the mission, and the values. I hope that kind of makes that a little bit easier to understand. Time to thank our friends at RepairPal for making this episode possible. Don't get left behind. Today's tech-savvy consumers value instant gratification, so they start their searches for a repair shop on their computers and smartphones. These power users research auto repair and service options and decide which shops to engage with in an instant. Gain these customers by being RepairPal certified. They provide proof that your prices are fair with their best-in-class estimator. They're the largest site for auto repair, and they will introduce your shop to new customers through RepairPal.com and through the recommendation of partners like USAA, CarMax, and Consumer Reports. As shop owners, we were in the RepairPal certified network, and it helped grow our business. You have to be in it to win it, so head on over to RepairPal.com/shops and set up a call to learn more. When you sign up, you'll get 1 month of service free and save $150 off certification. That's RepairPal.com/shops. Independent auto repair shops, get ready to transform your business with App Fuel. It's time for your professional auto service shop to have its own customer loyalty app. App Fuel will build an app that launches a custom loyalty program for your shop in 30 days or less, fully integrated with your point of sale system. Bring Fortune 500 level customer retention strategies to your business without the Fortune 500 budget. Many shops are enjoying the benefits. Our app engages your customers with a loyalty ladder, enticing them to climb the next rung, coming back more often and spending more each visit, all with your own app. Build loyalty with your customers to your brand and boost your shop's growth. Get your first app in 30 days or less, all without breaking the bank. Ready to start? Let App Fuel take your business to the next level. Go to appfuel.com or meet founder Jeremy Glasgow and book your complimentary app vision session at appfuel.com/Jeremy. That's appfueled.com/Jeremy. I always thought that things like core values and mission and vision statements were just something that you put on your website for your clients to read to make it sound good, or something that you would hang on your waiting room wall. And it wasn't until we started doing EOS, and it was really with the core values more than anything. The mission I especially see the value of the vision after doing this deep dive. The core values were the big thing for me, because when we established our core values and started running our company with these core values and using them as a litmus test when it came time to make decisions, that's when everything changed. And that's when I could see, oh my gosh, the value in having a set of core values that are actually used the way that core values are supposed to be used. So for instance, let's say that you want to make a big hire, all right? And let's use it in relation to the company that I gave the example of. So we want to make a big hire. We can litmus test it against our vision. If we hire this person, are they going to help us to become a $100 million revenue company with 10 offices across the U.S., 1,000 employees serving 10,000 clients? And will they help us to do that while being the best at what we do in our industry? So we just litmus tested it against our vision. Then we're going to litmus test it against our mission. Is that person going to help us provide the highest quality marketing services to auto repair shops throughout the U.S. and Canada? Yes or no? Should be an easy answer. And then we litmus test it against our values. Does this person have high integrity? Do they do things with excellence? And do they treat other people with respect? If the answer is no to any one of these things, then the answer is no to hiring that person. And that is where the value of having your vision, your mission, and your values in place comes in. But there's a lot more to it for each one of these things. That kind of crosses all of those things. But I'm going to talk about the value of vision also here a little bit further into this podcast. So I used to be in this 2 coaching programs. I started out in this coaching program called Warriors by a guy named Garrett J. White. If you look him up, don't judge me. Then I moved from that program to one called Man Wealth that was run by Satima Ghali and Nate Bailey. And at the core of both of these programs was one very simple question. And that question was, what do you want? And just stick with me, okay? Because I'm going to pull all this together. Question was, what do you want? It's a simple question that most people cannot answer. And if I ask you that in relation to your business, you might throw out some revenue numbers or something. What do you want? I just want to have an auto repair shop. I want to do $3 million in revenue. And people get hung up on revenue for some reason. I get it. It's one of the easy things to throw out there. We're going to come back to that, though. When you're looking at this as a person, it becomes different because, you can talk about revenue and revenue is cool and everything. But what about your health? What do you want your health to be like? Especially when you start getting to be my age, which I'm still young. I'm 48 years old. But health has become a serious thing for me. And anybody who knows me has seen the effort that I've put into my health lately. What about my relationships and my family? Those things are way bigger than money. They're way bigger than revenue. What about my spirituality? We want to talk about money, but if someone offered you $1 billion today, to say, I'm going to give you $1 billion. Problem is you can't spend it in your lifetime. And after you die, it's just going to go away. You're not going to get to leave it down to anybody. Would you still want the $1 billion? Because nobody cares about the actual dollars. The dollars don't mean anything. It's about what you can do with the dollars. So when I talk about what do you want, don't say I want $5 million in the bank. Instead, think about, I want to be debt-free. I want to have the freedom that comes along with having that money. I want to be able to travel, without boundaries. I want to pay for my grandkids to go to college. That's what you want. It's not the dollars, all right? This question about what do you want, it's a very valid question, and it's kind of at the core of everything that we're talking about today. And I'm going to talk about that some more. So when we talk about creating a clear vision for your business, you're going to hear a common theme through here. That clear part is probably the most important, because my team, I had given them what I thought was a clear view of what my vision looked like. But what I'd done was I gave them a 10,000 foot view of what it looked like. And we use that expression a lot. We'll talk about 10,000 foot view. More often, you'll hear people talking about a 30,000 foot view. And where that comes from, the whole idea of a 30,000 foot view is, what do you see when you look out the window of an airplane that's flying at 30,000 feet? And if you think about it, you can tell when you're flying over a city, you can look down and you can see the city. And it's crazy because, I'm not talking about a New York or an Atlanta or something, but a fairly large city, a city of 100,000 people. You can look out the window of an airplane and you can see the whole darn thing and the suburbs of it from 30,000 feet. But what you can't see is you can't see any detail. If it's a perfectly clear day and you have really, really good vision, then you might be able to make out that there's an 18-wheeler parked behind a building, but probably not. Like you probably can't see that. You might be able to, differentiate a building the size of a Walmart from another building the size of a Walmart, like where one starts and one ends. But that's going to be really hard to do at 30,000 feet. But there's a city down there. So you can kind of tell what it is. Now, when you get down to 10,000 feet, that's a different animal. You can see a whole lot more at 10,000 feet than you can at 30,000 feet. At 10,000 feet, you can see each individual building, especially the larger buildings. You might be able to see a very large sign that has a logo that would be a recognizable logo on it and know that, that's a McDonald's logo, that's a Coca-Cola logo, because you've grown up all your life seeing it, but only because it's recognizable can you tell what it is. At 10,000 feet, you can definitely see the 18-wheelers that are parked along the edge of a big warehouse. But you can't make out like a car. You definitely can't make out people from 10,000 feet. It's just too far away. You can't see the detail. And when you're creating a clear vision for your business, what you need to do is you need to be giving people that ground level view. At the ground level, not only can you make out a person, you can read what their t-shirt says. You know what color hair they have. You can smell the perfume they're wearing. And that's the kind of detail that your vision needs to have. When you go to create your vision, one of the things that both of these books talked about, and some of the videos and podcasts talked about, was how important it is to get yourself out of your typical environment when you're doing this. My favorite podcast episode that I've ever listened to was an Ed Milet Show episode about touching your dreams. And in the blog, I've got a link to that episode. Ed talks about how Ed's knocking on the door of being a billionaire if he's not a billionaire yet. And he was poor living in his car in his adult life. So he's come a long way in a short time. And he talks about how when he was poor, he would go walk around in the nice neighborhoods. When he was a salesman, if he had like a really big sale, he would take a small amount of money that he saved up and he would go spend a night, just one night at the Ritz-Carlton, because he knew that he wanted to live that type of life. And I'm not saying that you need to live that type of life at all. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to put yourself within proximity of your dreams. Put yourself in a place where you can touch your dreams. He used the example of, you want to own the Porsche one day? Go to the dealership and drive one. Go rent one on Turo for a day. Spend the day driving it. Put yourself in proximity of these dreams. So if you're going to take a vision getaway, most people, they think small, and I'm encouraging you to really think big, okay? And if you take the things that you're dreaming of and you put yourself in proximity of that, especially while you're creating this vision, then you're going to think bigger. So if you have a dream of like owning a cabin in the mountains or owning a house on the beach one day, then go rent a cabin in the mountains for a few days or rent a beach house for a few days and use that as your vision getaway to go get out of your normal environment and spend some time really crafting your vision. Because crafting your vision, it's not an hour-long process. If it is, you did it too quickly. I mean, yeah, you could do it in a day, but it'd be much better to like work on it, get away from it, work on it some more, get away from it, come work on it some more. So go rent that cabin or that beach house. And look, I get it. I understand that not everybody who is listening to this is in the position to be able to do that. You may not be able to leave, although I'm going to tell you, you need to leave the business. Maybe you just have to do it on a weekend or over a holiday, but you may not be able to leave, or you may not be able to afford it. And when you're in that position, that is definitely the time that you need to be creating that vision for your company. So, if you're in the place where you can't do that, it is absolutely fine to go sit down at a park on a beautiful day and work on this. Do it a couple of days back to back. It is absolutely fine to go sit down at a nice, quiet coffee shop where you're not going to get interrupted and work on it. The big thing is you have to get away from your typical environment. You can't do this as a shop. Don't even try. Don't do it as a shop. Don't do it at your home. Get away, get out of your typical environment and go work on this. So how detailed does this vision need to be? Well, you could take a bow and arrow and just go shoot that arrow aimlessly into the air and you will hit something. Like that arrow will hit something. It might be the ground, it might be water, but that arrow is going to hit something. And you might not like what you hit. And that is the equivalent of running your business without a clear vision. You're going to get somewhere, but are you going to get where you want to go? If you shoot aimlessly and you get where you want to go, that was pure luck. And I mean, it was a lot of luck. I've heard it said that it's about as likely as a tornado going through a junkyard and assembling a 747. Think about that. Yeah, you can shoot aimlessly into the air, you're going to hit something. Now, you could also shoot that same arrow at the side of a barn, and you're probably going to hit the side of the barn. But is that really what you wanted to do? That's not much of a target. If you think about a target has a center point, and it's got circles around it. It's not just a blank piece of paper. And the details in your vision are the center point, and they're the rings around the target. They're precise. They let you know how you did when you took your shot. So think of it like this, all right? Just the paper that the target is printed on. That is, I want to own an auto repair shop. The outermost ring, that is, my auto repair shop will have 5 bays, 4 2-post lifts, an alignment rack, and 4 technicians. The middle ring around the target, that is, we work on European cars and exotics for affluent clients in the North Dallas area. The inner ring is, our technicians are factory trained. We stole the best of the best from the dealerships, and we keep them up to date by sending them to the best training events like Vision and ASTA. They're proficient in the use of the latest diagnostic equipment, including multi-channel oscilloscopes, 5-gas analyzers, pressure transducers, and more. We fix what other shops can't, and we do it with precision. It sound like we're getting better as we're getting closer to the center of the target? The center point of the target is we hold a 20% profit margin. Yeah, 22%. We hold a 22% profit margin and a $2,000 average repair order. I, as the owner, work 3 days per week. I travel without limits. I have 0 debt, and my retirement is fully funded. I mean, what else could we put in there? But like just about anybody can hit the paper that the target is printed on. And I know a lot of shop owners that operate like that. They own an auto repair shop, and that's about the best thing that they can say about it. And I would not want their life for anything. I do not want to walk a foot in their shoes, much less a mile in their shoes, because their lives suck. Because they have no vision. They aimed for nothing and they got nothing. So when you're crafting your vision, to answer that question, how detailed does it need to be? First of all, I want you to talk about it. When you're doing this, talk about it like you've already accomplished it. Don't state it in what's going to be. State it as if it already is in existence, okay? So here's some things to get you thinking, all right? How many bays do you have? What type of cars do you work on? What services do you offer? What's your revenue? What's your average repair order? What's your gross profit? What's your net profit? How many technicians do you have? How many service advisors do you have? How many support staff do you have, and what positions do they fill? Who's your coach? Who does your marketing? What's your marketing budget? How many loaner cars do you have? What shop management software are you using? What CRM are you using? Do you rent or own your building? What do your uniforms look like? What does your waiting area smell like? What training events do you go to each year? Do you close the shop and take everyone to those training events? Who's your CFO? Who's your CPA? What benefits do you offer your team? What does your sign look like? What does your landscaping look like? How are you involved in your community? How are you perceived in your community? What charities do you donate to? Who are your parts vendors? What's your warranty? Like, we could go on for a long time about this, but that's the kind of detail that you want to get into when you're crafting your vision. Now, I'm going to beat this dead horse, okay? I want you to think really big. And don't worry about how you're going to do it. Now isn't the time to worry about how you're going to do it, because the how, that'll scare you. The how it'll keep you from dreaming big. You just need to get this stuff down on paper. You can worry about the how later. I want to know, what do you really want? And keep this aligned with your personal goals. What do you want personally? Because you can't say that you personally want to travel without bounds, but then you're one of the people that the shop really depends on being there. Like, those two things don't jive. You can't say that you want to donate $1 million to your church, but you only do $1 million in revenue, because those things don't jive either. But you also don't want to be like, oh, I want to be the first $1 billion shop owner, and not have a why behind that. You need to know why you want things to be the way that they are. Because if you don't have that, you're not going to be driven to like really go after it. So don't worry about how to do it. Both of these books talked about JFK and the space race. JFK in 1961, he goes to Congress and he says, we're going to put a man on the moon. But not only did he say we're going to put a man on the moon, he said we're going to put a man on the moon and we're going to bring him back to Earth safely. And on top of that, we're going to do it before the decade is over. It's one of the biggest examples in modern history, anyway, of an amazing vision being cast. And there I go using that cast word. I'll say shared in a way that he needed to get everybody bought into it. Because during this time, man, America needed something. America needed something big. And, unfortunately, it didn't happen until 1969 after JFK was assassinated, but it did happen. And man, he got everybody in the United States galvanized around this idea of we're going to put a man on the moon. Do you think he knew how to do it? JFK didn't know how to do it. He was not a rocket scientist. He was not a NASA engineer. He didn't know how to do it. He just knew that if he put it out there, if he created a big enough vision, people understood what we were going to do, why we're going to do it, which, by the way, the why behind that, Russia was basically against us. Like, they were our competition in the space race, and everybody was scared to death of Russia. And they knew that whoever controlled space has a really big advantage when it comes to the military advantage, of this was just huge. We're in the Cold War. People are scared to death of Russia. We had a really good reason to be the ones who dominated the space race. And we have dominated it ever since then. So you have to show people what's in it for them. As I'm doing this, I need to go add into the blog about the importance of showing people what is in it for them. Because if people don't know what's in it for them, then they're not going to get behind it. Don't worry about how to do it. That part will come. So when it comes to sharing the vision with your team, this is where I messed up. I had the vision, though. My vision was definitely not as detailed as this deep dive would show me that I need it to be. But I did have the vision. I just had not done a good job of sharing it with my team. And you can have the most well thought out vision with the most incredible detail, and it'll accomplish nothing if you're the only one who knows what that vision is. So you need to share the vision with everyone on your team. And, that being said, there is an order to how you should share it. And in the book, The Vision-Driven Leader, Michael Hyatt, he refers to it as selling down the ladder. And basically, you're going to start with the people on your leadership team and work your way down when you're selling this vision. And it makes sense because you're not going to go tell your porter about your vision before you're telling your chief operating officer what your vision is. If you do that, your chief operating officer is going to be a little miffed when they hear about your vision from your porter. It just doesn't work that way. You sell it down the ladder, or down your accountability chart. And I understand that a lot of shops out there, especially your smaller shops, they don't really have a leadership team. A lot of times that leadership team is the owner and their spouse. In that case, and look, trust me on this, you definitely want to sell this to your spouse before you go selling it to your team. Don't go tell your team and then tell your spouse, because you will be sleeping on the couch. All right. Believe me. But you sell it down the ladder. Now, your mid-size and larger shops that have leadership teams, your multi-shop organizations that definitely have leadership teams, you want to start with the highest ranking people in your organization and then work your way down. But don't do like I did. I didn't go far enough down the ladder. You have to go all the way down the ladder. Everybody in your organization needs to know about your vision. even like strategic partners like your vendors and all, it may be important for them to know your vision too. And you'll have to determine that on your own, as to whether or not they need to know that. The other thing is, and Michael Hyatt's book talked about this, is that you need to have thick skin and you need to willingly take feedback, because people aren't going to get into, they're not going to buy into something if they feel like they're just the subordinates of a dictator and you're going to do what you're going to do anyway. People don't buy in, they comply. And there's a big difference between buying in and complying. You want your people bought in. You don't want them to comply. Now, one of the other things that the vision-driven leader talked about was, once you have your vision, you talk about it and you don't stop talking about it. And the book didn't talk about this, but I thought about it immediately when I was reading it, is that you need to find your MAGA, your Make America Great Again. Because whether you like him or not, Donald Trump's Make America Great Again is one of the best examples of creating a shared vision. You might hear me say it without hearing it in his voice, but you can't read the words Make America Great Again without hearing it in his voice. I have no Donald Trump impression, but always at the end of every one of his rallies or whatever, he'd be like, and we are going to make America great again. And I would venture to say that most people in developed countries can hear it in his voice when they read it, because it is that big. Again, I'm not getting political. I don't care what side you're on. I know what side most of our industry is on, but the political part of it is not what's important. What's important is that he said it over and over and over and over and over, and he got people bought in to a shared vision. So in Michael Hyatt's book, he says, when you think that your team is sick and tired of hearing your vision, you are just getting started. And it's not to say that they are sick and tired of it. You just have the perception that they're sick and tired of it. Your team loves hearing your vision. They want to know that you have something that you are driving towards. So just kind of wrapping this up, my leadership team, they asked me to do a better job of creating a shared vision throughout all levels of our organization. I thought, that seems, I should say, like the easy part. One of my Q2 rocks, is to craft this detailed vision, because I have not gone in and crafted this vision yet. It is March 20th, 2025 as I'm recording this. March 25th, 2025 is our next quarterly meeting. So I had this quarter to get this rock done, and I did a lot with this rock. I mean, I read 2 pretty big books. I watched numerous YouTube videos. I listened to all of these podcasts, made all kind of notes about it and everything, because my rock, when you do a rock, it has to be something that's measurable. So just to say that I did a deep dive, that's not measurable. What's measurable is that I wrote a blog post about what I learned, and I'm recording this podcast about what I learned. It took me the entire quarter to do this. And now, as I go into Q2, I know that one of my Q2 rocks is going to be to actually establish this highly detailed vision that I will then take and share throughout every level of my team. Now, one of the things that I know is that after doing this, I have a much higher respect for this idea of creating a shared vision. I got bought into mission, vision, and values because it's a core principle in EOS. But after doing this deep dive, I really see just how important having a shared vision is. And I hope that it's come across in this podcast, and I hope that it's inspiring you to go back and create this shared vision. Because for your team to accomplish what you want them to accomplish, you all have to be aiming at the same target. If you've got one target in your head and they have a different target in their head, your business, it might go in the general direction that you want it to, but it's not going to hit the center of that target. You're not going to nail those big goals that you have. I hope that this inspires you to go back and create a really strong shared vision for your company. I know this has been a bit of a longer episode. I think it was worth it. I do want to thank you for listening. I thank you for listening every week. And thank you to our sponsors, RepairPal and App Fuel. We are just one of a handful of podcasts on the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can find the others at aftermarketradionetwork.com. I hope that you'll listen in again next week. And until then, go fill those bays.
You've been listening to the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast with Kim and Brian Walker. Follow the podcast on your favorite listening app. Find their emails in the show notes and visit them at shopmarketingpros.com. Let Kim and Brian know what you want discussed, because they're all about advancing the aftermarket.